Okay, guys, give me 1 second, please. If there was a way to do this before I actually came on live, I would totally do it. But as of right now, I don't know of a way to share this out before I come on. So this is this awkward minute before everything starts that happens. If you have a share button, take this time to share. Share it out. Okay, what did I do? Okay, here we go. Okay, so I am Trina. I am a self-love coach. I help successful women of color create a higher level of joy, peace, and love in her life while rediscovering her true self. And one way that I do that is to present ways of thinking or just different thoughts into the atmosphere so that you can consider how it applies to you, if it applies to you at all, or if you recognize, because sometimes things pop up and we don't recognize that it is a thing, right? We just know that we're stuck in a space and we don't know why. The day I want to talk about this thing that happens is I don't know if you guys, for you guys who are familiar with Good Times, and I know that you're probably familiar with Good Times, the sitcom, the 70s sitcom with the black family in the ghetto. There was an episode where the mom's character, Florida, was dating the atheist Carl. And they were in a restaurant, and Carl was telling her that she was too nice because she didn't want to, she didn't complain about her meal that they had obviously gotten very wrong, and she didn't, So anyway, if you've seen the episode, you know what I'm talking about. What I want to bring to your attention is I was having a conversation yesterday, I think it was, and I was talking to someone. We were talking about how people don't complain. Okay, we know people complain, but have you ever been in a space where you felt like, well, I'm not going to go through the process of complaining because I don't want to seem like, or I don't want them to, or I don't want her or him to. And what it made me think about was the mindset that we have, especially as people of color here in the USA. And it's about, we have, through the years, through this rocky time that our people have gone through being in this country, in this culture, in this society, we have been limited in so many different ways, and without even realizing it, we have adopted a lot of things that we don't pay attention to because it's so in our DNA almost, right? And one of the, and I see it come across the screen. Every time I see it come across the screen, or whether it's whatever platform it's on, I get this funny feeling in my stomach, and I never could understand why it made me feel so funny, right? And I think I realized what it is. We present certain images and certain things and certain parts of ourselves as being too kind, as being the good one, as being, the compliant one, I guess. And what happens is, what it really appears to be is more of martyrdom. And I always talk about martyrdom. People send themselves up to be a martyr, and suffrage and all of that good stuff. And what it made me think about is the way that we have been programmed to think, right? The conversation was around someone not complaining about something that was done, because I didn't want someone to feel a certain way, or I didn't want, something to be said or whatever. And the thing is that is your right to have what you pay for, to be as you paid for it. That is your right as a consumer. But for some reason, a lot of times, and I'm imagining this span the spectrum, right? It's not just people of color, but I can only speak from a person of color's point of view. But I can imagine that so many ways in our lives we put up with things. We put up with things simply because in our head We don't want to bring attention to ourselves, and or we don't think that we truly deserve the best simply because that's what's been shoved down our throat since for 400 years plus, right? And so when things come up, we take on this feeling of being a martyr or being the good one. You know, even the ones who say, and I talk about this occasionally, when someone says, quote unquote, the ones with the kindest heart are the ones who get hurt the most. I'm not saying that's not true or that is true. What I'm saying is having a kind heart does not equate to, I don't want to say stupidity. It does not equate to rolling over, right? It doesn't equate to doormat. Having a kind heart has nothing to do with that. But for some reason, we have adopted that type of language because we want it to be something else than what it is, which is settling. Now, I wrote down a couple of examples because I wanted to make sure that I remember them, because once I start talking, I get all over the place. But one way that looks like, you think it's being kind or being good, but I think it's something that's a little bit more dark. And maybe if we recognize it, it'll give us an opportunity to start correcting these things in our lives, which will bring us into a better space in our lives, right? So one of the things was not complaining about legitimate things, right? Not complaining because your meal didn't come out the way that you ordered, that you paid for it. Getting something that you ordered and it's broken and you say, well, I ain't going to go through the trouble. I'm not going to, make them feel like whatever. Or, just legitimate things. If you're in a space where someone is obligated to do something for you, we overlook it, to not bother somebody else. At least that's what we tell ourselves. Another way that would look like never being able to say no, because you want to be the good guy. You want to be that one or whatever, or maybe not, or even saying yes or not being able to say yes, because you feel like what you say is going to make someone else feel or less than or feel underneath. But in reality, is it being kind, or is that just a darker side of not believing that we deserve certain things, or that we are supposed to be in that space of second tier? You know what I'm saying? The ones who volunteer to do something and then complain about it. Okay, and what that would look like is, you do something and you expect a certain thing and it doesn't happen and you complain about it, or you volunteer to do something and then you say, it just seems like everybody's always using me and blah, blah, blah. And you're the one who volunteered for it. Settling in different ways in our relationships and the things that we, like I said, even in the service that we receive, we kind of settle inside of it. And it's not, to me, that is not being kind. That's not just being, I don't want to be worrisome, right? And I don't know if not wanting to be worrisome is even part of the agreement when it comes down to consumerism. When it comes down to, if I pay this for this, I should get this, right? Not if I pay for this and it comes out wrong, I'm just going to deal with it because I don't want them to think that I'm an issue, or I don't want them to feel like I'm a problem because I say something about it. Even when it comes to when we make that space, right? When we don't keep our space, we don't hold our space sacred. And by that, what I mean is, if you're walking down the hallway and you are 2/3 of the way down the hallway and someone new starts up the hallway, after you are 2/3 of the hallway down, you move over. Not saying that courtesy isn't important, because I believe courtesy is wonderful. But when it is, you're walking, and you are 2/3 down the hallway and someone just entered the hallway and you say, excuse me, and you move over. As if it is your fault that they came and got in front of you. As if they have the right of way and you don't deserve to be in that space, right? I noticed that I was doing the space thing, even in elevators. And it wasn't until even a few years ago, that I realized, why the heck am I moving? Like, this was my space. This is the space that when I get on the elevator, I don't expect anyone to move out of their space to give it to me. I just expect to be able to get on the elevator. But for some reason, I've seen it, and I witnessed it to this day. A person can be in their space and they will move to allow the other person to take their space, not out of courtesy, just because it's habit almost. And so, is it kindness, or is it something a little bit darker? Is it something, when I say darker, what I mean is that a space of healing that is required? Is that a space that requires healing? And when we can't prioritize ourselves, when we don't value our space, when we don't value our basic consumer rights, is that kindness? Or is that something else? And I truly believe that it's something else. Kindness is something totally different from what this is that I'm talking about. I don't know if you have experienced this specifically as a person of color, because I know we are subjected to it a lot. Watching a white male move out of the way for a white female, but expects a black female to move out of his way. Same exact circumstances, and I've seen it done so often. And what's the surprising part is, even though I think people are getting better about claiming their space, it still happens simply because it has just been one of those things. And I think we have to get to a space of reteaching folks about our place here, reteaching folks, or reteaching ourselves about what we deserve, what is ours. Our space is our basic human right. We don't have to, give up that just because. And a lot of times, if you look into your day-to-day interactions, you will see how you take yourself out of priority space and put you in the back seat. And it's funny, like when you are looking and you're watching that, examine what it is that you're feeling inside at that moment. Like, why did I move, right? Why did I give up my space for somebody else? I deserve to be in my space. This is the unwritten law of human interaction, right? Why did I volunteer for something that I know I don't want to do? Or why did I volunteer for these different things that for what reason? Like, why? And especially for the ones that you complain about later. And it's funny because I don't think people really realize that they're doing that they are volunteering for things. And then they complain about it because they volunteered for it. And there's something that makes them feel some type of way about it. Right? And like I said, even saying the yeses and even saying the no's, right? Like, if you're not able to say no to someone because you feel guilty, what is that? Is that being kind? Saying yes, or not being able to say yes for the things that you want to do because you think somebody else should have it, or somebody else deserves it. Pay attention to that. Pay attention to that. That is a space of healing. That is a space that needs healing. Okay? How do you do that? First of all, recognize that you're doing it. Recognize that you are picking yourself up out of a priority space and putting yourself in a secondary space. Not that you're in a secondary space, but you are moving yourself from a primary space, putting it into a secondary space. Look for those things. Pay attention to those things. And then ask yourself, why do you feel like you needed to be the one that give up that, right? Why did you feel like you had to move, or you had to be the one to go to a different space? Okay, so I am getting all these different beeps and bops and things going on. I'm going to go check those out. So if you're watching me, here I come. I'm going to come check them in a minute. I just wanted to finish this thought. I would love to know your thoughts about about this, what I'm talking about, first of all, and second of all, examining yourself and see where you are doing that at in your life, where you are taking yourself out of a primary space and putting yourself in a secondary space. Maybe subconsciously you're doing it. Of course, subconsciously we're doing it. I don't think it was on the top of our head, but I'm talking about it because I want it to be on the top of your head so that you can start claiming your space, because you deserve every single freaking space that you place yourself into. You deserve the goodness. You deserve the basic consumer rights of being able to get what it is that you pay for. You deserve to have the service that you pay for. If you're in a space, even in a landlord-tenant space, as the freaking tenant, you are paying for a certain level of service, and you deserve to get what it is that you paid for, right? Was rightfully yours. And even in relationships, even when it comes down to relationships, we give up things because we just feel like, not the ones where you're just trying to get away. I get it. I totally get that. But for the people who say, you know what, maybe I don't deserve that. Maybe somebody else deserves better than that, better than me, deserve it more than me. Examine those spaces inside of yourself, okay? That's what I'm asking you this Sunday to do. Examine those spaces inside of yourself that does not show you as priority. When you take from you to give to someone else, and I don't care who it is that you take giving it to, when you take from yourself to give to someone else without any thoughts about what you need, most of the times we take from what we need to give it to something that someone else won't. That is what you look for. I'm not going to beat it to death, but I did want to bring that to your attention and to get your thoughts about it. Let me know in the comments, okay? And I will talk to you guys later. Bye.